All right. First off, there is no fear of missing out here. You have a link to the code examples I'm going to show and an article I wrote about this subject earlier. Who am I? I'm Christopher, a consultant at Variant, working at SICT building systems for the education sector. But enough about me, let's talk about accessibility. Because accessibility is often an afterthought, something done late in a development cycle. If you're lucky, maybe during testing, but sometimes as late as during the monitoring phase. When your features, code, and design is live and discriminating real human beings. So, how do we shift accessibility left and make it run in all development steps? Make the feedback loop as short as possible and make it run reliably and predictably. Well, we could do lots of manual work, but that is boring, it's costly, and it's prone to human error. So, it's time to make the machines work for us. So, I'm going to show you some code examples, but there are some things you must bear in mind. These tools will only catch up to 40 or 57% of the accessibility issues, depending if you ask the people selling human experts or systems. But then again, the human experts will only find up to 68% of the issues. So if we make the machines catch the first 40%, maybe the humans can do some more heavy lifting. Yes, so for my example, I have created an app with Create View. In that app, I have created a to-do list on a route here. It has a header, it has a summary, an input, and a list of to-dos. So here I can add a to-do and I can remove it. And if I go into my code, here I have my to-do view with the heading, the summary, a form with an input and a button. And the first tool I want to add is linting. So in my ESLint config, I have added a plugin called Vue.js Accessibility. If you're using React or some other frameworks, you have the same tools. So let's say I want to add a feature in my input component. I'm going to add another input field. Like so. And as you see, I get a red squiggly telling me that my input need a label. That's good. And my friend who's working on VS Code as editor instead will get the same error. Yes. And I can also run this from the terminal. And I will get the same error there. So I'm going to remove that to make sure that my code works again. And since I know humans are lazy and no developer is going to run this on their local machine, I also going to add it to my Git tugs. So on pre-commit here, I'm going to run lint staged. And I've set up lint staged to run my ESLint. So now you can't push unless you add the no verify flag without the linting running. All right, but there's also more layers to this. So for my button component, for example, here is the button component. It takes some props, a type, and a on-click, and the template is just a button with a slot. And I've added some unit tests for this component. Some basic unit tests down here that we don't need to look at, and then I have added an accessibility test. And what this test does is it mounts my component, and then it runs it through Axe. Here I'm using YesAx. And then I get the answer. Do I have violations or not? So I can try to run my tests. And everything is green. Let's say I go into my component and I break something. I remove the slot. And I run the tests again. Now I'm going to get an error saying that I need to have a text on my button. All right. But this test only tests this component, this unit, and to make sure that it's also used properly by its consumers. For example, in my to-do view, I've also written an accessibility test there that does the same thing. It mounts my to-do view and runs it through Axe. So, for example, if the developer here would use the button but leave out the text, he or she would get the same error. Yes. On top of the testing pyramid, we have the end-to-end tests, and I've written end-to-end tests here as well with Playwright. So if I look at my end-to-end tests, I'm using Xcore Playwright. The test basically goes to the to-do view, write in some a to-do, and submits it, and then I run my accessibility test, which basically takes the page, put it through Axe, and check that the violations are empty. So I'm going to run those as well. I'm going to run them headed so you can see what's happening, and also with slow-mo so it doesn't end too quickly so you don't get a chance to see what actually happens. So it opens my app, it adds a to-do, and then it's going to check for accessibility, and boom, it doesn't work. Why is this? Well, it seems like it's breaking WCAG 1.4.1, and I can go up here and see that the link styling needs to be distinguishable from the surrounding text. I didn't do anything of that, so if I go back to my app, I can see that it's probably these two links that was created with create view. All right, that's not good. So, anyways, when I have done writing these tests, I'm going to add them to my pipeline to make sure they are running there as well. So I add a job for linting that runs the lint. I add a job for the unit tests that runs the unit tests, and I add a job for my end-to-end tests. But let's say this is your code base, and you are not on an evergreen project, then there's tools for you as well, like PaluCI and Lighthouse CI that can scan a list of web pages or a sitemap, for example. So in my project, I've set up a config for PaluCI, where I've added some random URLs from the internet. So I'm going to run those. And let's see what's happening. 155 errors. 51 errors. Wow, that's not good. That's not good at all, NDC. Well, let's have a look at this list and try to figure out what's wrong here. Well, it seems like the H1, title medium, NDC, Oslo, doesn't have enough contrast. It seems to be the same thing for the links. If I go down a little bit further, I see there's links, but with no text. They only have images, like for the speakers and events. And and there's also images missing alt attributes. So there's lots of things to dig into here. If I look at the page, I can see that it's probably these links up here. I noticed you got one link for the tickets here and another one here, missing text. And all the speakers are missing alt text on their images and the articles as well. All right. So now I'm done, and I'm going to push my code to my repo, and boom, accessibility broke my build. Thank you for listening.